Welcome, dear listener, to another episode of True Crime Sleep Stories. Tonight we drift into the vast whispering wilderness of Alaska, where endless spruce forests meet snow-capped mountains, and the long summer days give way to winters that swallow the light. In the growing city of Anchorage, a man once lived a life that felt as steady and warm as fresh bread from the oven. He rose before dawn to knead dough, smiled at his regular customers, raised a family, and on weekends he took to the skies in his little bush plane, chasing the thrill of big game hunting across the wild valleys and rivers. Neighbors knew him as quiet, polite, even shy, the kind of man who kept to himself, but always had time for a kind word. Yet appearances can be so deceiving. We pass people every day, share smiles, exchange small talk, trust the gentle face we see, and never truly know what kind of monster may be dwelling inside someone's heart. The devoted husband, the respected businessman, the quiet hunter. How easily those masks can conceal something unspeakable, something patient and predatory waiting beneath the surface. Over more than a decade, shadows lengthened across those remote Alaskan trails and gravel roads. Women vanished. Dancers, waitresses, young runaways drawn to the bright lights of Spennard and 4th Avenue. Some were never seen again. Others carried stories they dared not tell. We'll walk through this tale slowly, letting the cold Alaskan wind carry the details like falling snow. Breathe in and out, and let the story wrap around you like a warm blanket on a freezing night. Our journey begins far from the tundra in the rolling fields of the American Midwest. But first, a quick pause to thank our sponsors. They help make nights like this possible. We'll return in just a moment. Welcome back, my friend. Snuggle deeper into your pillows now. The fire is low, the room is quiet, and we're ready to continue our slow journey into the frozen north. Let's begin where our quiet baker's story truly started. Robert Christian Hansen entered the world on February 15, 1939, in the small town of Estherville, Iowa, a place of cornfields and quiet main streets, where the winters bite almost as sharply as they do in Alaska. He was the elder of 2 children born to Christian Chris Hansen, a Danish immigrant who ran the local bakery with a firm hand, and his wife, Edna. The family moved briefly to California when Robert was very young, but returned to Iowa in 1949, settling in Pocahontas. There, young Robert learned the rhythms of the bakery early. Rising in the dark, the smell of yeast and flour filling the air. His father expecting hard work even on school mornings. Life was not easy for the boy. He stuttered badly, a severe impediment that made speaking in class a daily trial. Severe acne left permanent scars across his face, and the other children noticed. Bullied and isolated, he grew into a quiet loner. His father was domineering, strict, and demanding, traits that left deep marks. Yet in the woods outside town, Robert found peace. He became skilled with a rifle and bow, losing himself for hours tracking game through the trees. Hunting felt like control in a world that had often made him feel powerless. In 1957, at age 18, he enlisted in the United States Army Reserve. He served 1 year before receiving an honorable discharge and returned home to work once more at the family bakery. He took a job as an assistant drill instructor at a local police academy where he met a younger woman. They married in the summer of 1960, but resentment simmered. On December 7th, 1960, While serving as a volunteer firefighter, Robert, along with a friend, set fire to the Pocahontas County School bus garage. It was an act of revenge against the high school that had, in his view, wronged him so deeply. He was arrested, pleaded guilty, and sentenced to 3 years in Anamosa State Penitentiary. He served 20 months. During that time, his first wife divorced him. Released in the early 1960s, Robert was jailed several more times for petty theft. In 1963, he met and married his second wife, Darla Marie Henriksen. The couple had 2 children. Seeking a fresh start, they packed up in 1967 and drove north to the booming frontier of Anchorage, Alaska. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline was on the horizon, bringing workers, money, and new opportunity. Robert opened Hansen's Bakery in a modest strip mall near downtown at 828 East 9th Avenue, and locals soon came to know him as Bob the Baker. His donuts and danishes were favorites. He was soft-spoken, unassuming, always polite behind the counter. The family settled into a home in the Muldoon neighborhood on the east side of town. Robert obtained his pilot's license and bought a Piper PA-18 Super Cub bush plane. On weekends, he flew into the backcountry, hunting moose, Dall sheep, and bear. He set several local records, his trophies displayed proudly at home. To everyone who knew him, he was the very picture of a hard-working, shy family man. Yet by the early 1970s, the facade began to crack. On November 15, 1971, 18-year-old real estate secretary Susan Marie Heppard noticed a man following her home. When she turned him away at her door, he left, but returned on November 22nd with a pistol. He held the gun to her head and threatened to kill her if she screamed. Susan, terrified yet courageous, managed to escape the terrifying encounter and reported him to the police. He was convicted of assault with a dangerous weapon in March 1972, receiving a 5-year sentence but serving only 6 months on work release after psychiatric evaluation. Another young woman, 18-year-old Patty Roberts, also known as Sandra Patterson, a sex worker, was kidnapped at gunpoint from the Nevada Tavern in downtown Anchorage on December 19, 1971. Hansen drove her south along the Seward Highway to the Kenai Lake area, threatening to kill her if she did not cooperate. He tied her up, rented a motel room, raped her, and returned her to Anchorage approximately 12 hours later. Patty bravely identified him in a police lineup. An unidentified woman encountered on September 28, 1975, was similarly abducted but released unharmed after complying with his demands. On October 14, 1979, Christy Hayes, a dancer at Ember's Bar, agreed to a date with Hansen after work in exchange for $110. Once inside the back of his camper truck, he produced a revolver, tied her hands and feet with wire, and drove to the vicinity of Burrell and Chena Streets. Christy freed herself from the bindings, climbed through the sliding window into the cab, and ran, bleeding, to a nearby house for help. These brave survivors endured unimaginable terror through quick thinking, resilience, and sheer will to live, their stories a testament to their strength in the face of horror. But Robert's impulses were deepening. Authorities later learned his pattern had already turned darker. On December 22, 1971, just days after the assault on Patty Roberts, 18-year-old Celia Beth Van Zanten left her home on Nick Avenue in Anchorage to walk a few blocks to the Buy-Low supermarket. She was abducted and taken to the remote McHugh Creek area in Chugach State Park. There, in the freezing wilderness, she was bound with speaker wire behind her back, sexually assaulted, and her chest slashed with a knife. In a desperate act of courage, Beth managed to escape her captor and fled into the bitter cold. She fell 50 feet down a ravine but tried to climb back up. Tragically, the sub-zero temperatures claimed her life through exposure. Her partially clothed body, naked from the waist down, partially covered in leaves and snow, was found on Christmas Day, December 25th, 1971. One can only imagine the fear and desperation this young woman felt as she ran for her life, hoping against hope to reach safety. Robert would later deny killing her, yet an X on his secret map matched the exact location. By the mid-1970s, Anchorage was changing rapidly with the pipeline boom. Strip clubs and bars along 4th Avenue and in Spenard filled with young women, dancers, waitresses, runaways, many working in the sex trade. Robert began frequenting those areas. He would approach women with offers of money for sex or nude photography sessions. Once they were in his car, he pulled a gun, often a .357 Magnum revolver or a .22, and took them to his Muldoon home. There in the basement, he chained them. Many were raped and tortured over hours or days. Some he released back in Anchorage after warning them not to speak, threatening to kill them if they did. Over 30 women survived these encounters and later came forward, each carrying the weight of trauma that no one should ever endure. One question lingers. How could such horrors happen in the family home without his wife, Darla, ever knowing? The answer lies in Hansen's careful compartmentalization. In the basement of their Muldoon house on Old Harbor Avenue, he kept victims chained, often by the neck to a support post or furniture, while the family lived upstairs in the main living areas. Cindy Paulson described the space as eerily quiet, and police later found it concealed behind ordinary features with no obvious signs visible to casual eyes. Hansen timed these abductions for when Darla and the children were asleep, out of the house, or away on trips. His bakery hours and frequent hunting excursions gave him windows of opportunity. Darla, a devoted wife and mother who stood by him through earlier troubles, believed his late-night absences involved nothing more than occasional indiscretions. She had no idea of the depth of his darkness until the investigation revealed it all. The victim's suffering unfolded in terrifying silence below, while ordinary life continued above, a heartbreaking reminder of how completely he hid his true self. Robert's first confessed murder was a woman known only as Eklutna Annie, likely a topless dancer or sex worker, possibly from out of town, perhaps Kodiak or even California. She was picked up on the side of the road. Hansen offered her a ride home. She became suspicious and wanted out, and then his pickup truck got stuck in a muddy swamp south of Eklutna Lake. She ran for freedom, but he caught her by the hair, dragged her to the ground, and stabbed her in the back. Her remains, partially consumed by wildlife, were found buried near a power line on July 21st, 1980. We remember this young woman, estimated in her late teens or early 20s, whose true name may never be known, and whose final moments were filled with unimaginable terror and pain. In May 1980, 24-year-old Joanna Messina met Robert while dining in Seward. When she offered sex for cash and he refused payment or to release her, he drove her and her dog to a distant gravel pit near Snow River. He struck her with a .22 revolver, shot her twice, and killed her dog as well. Her badly decomposed body was discovered in the gravel pit on July 8, 1980. 23-year-old Sherry Morrow, a dancer, was last seen on November 17, 1981, after agreeing to pose for nude photographs for $300. Hansen took her to the Nick River, stripped her, and shot her 3 times in the back with his Ruger Mini 14 .223 caliber semi-automatic rifle, the same weapon he used for big game hunting. Her body, found in a shallow grave in September 1982, still wore some clothing, suggesting he had redressed her after her death. Sherry's vibrant life was stolen in a moment of calculated cruelty. 23-year-old Sue Luna was abducted after a similar photo shoot offer on May 26, 1982. Robert flew her into the wilderness, released her naked into the forest, and hunted her down like game. Her body was recovered in April 1984 near the Knik River. Sue endured the horror of being stripped and pursued as prey, her final flight a heartbreaking struggle for survival. 20-year-old dancer Tammy Peterson vanished on August 7, 1982, after agreeing to pose for photographs. Her remains were later found where Robert guided searchers. 24-year-old Angela Feddern disappeared in February 1983. Her body surfaced near Figure 8 Lake. 22-year-old Teresa Watson was taken March 25, 1983, after meeting for $300 in exchange for company. Robert took her to Scenic Lake, where the frozen ground prevented burial, and left her body where she fell. 30-year-old Paula Goulding was abducted April 25, 1983. She fought and attempted to flee. He chased her and shot her in the back with the Mini 14. Her body was found in September 1983 near the Knik River. 19-year-old Robin Pelkey, known for decades only as Horseshoe Harriet, vanished July 19, 1983. Her partial remains were recovered near Palmer. She had been stabbed and shot. DNA finally identified her in 2021. Each of these women, daughters, friends, dreamers, deserved safety and a full life, not the terror and violence inflicted upon them. Robert confessed to 17 murders in total. Authorities believe he killed at least 21. He kept jewelry and identification from many victims hidden in his attic as trophies. On an aeronautical chart tucked behind the headboard in his bedroom, he had marked 37 X's across south-central Alaska, many corresponding to body recovery sites. The end came on June 13, 1983. 17-year-old Cindy Paulson, working the streets, accepted $200 for an encounter. Robert pulled a gun, drove her to his Muldoon home, chained her in the basement, and assaulted her repeatedly. He then forced her, handcuffed and barefoot, into his car and drove to Merrill Field Airport. While he loaded his Piper Super Cub for the flight into the wilderness, Cindy saw her chance. She bolted from the car, ran barefoot across the tarmac and onto 6th Avenue, flagging down a passing truck driven by Robert Yount. Shaking and terrified, she told her story. Yount took her to safety and called police. A security guard at the airfield had noted the suspicious car's license plate. Anchorage police and Alaska State troopers connected the dots. Ballistics from shell casings at several grave sites matched Robert's Ruger Mini 14. FBI profiler John Douglas, working with lead investigator Sergeant Glenn Floth, created a profile: an experienced hunter and pilot, low self-esteem, a stutter, someone who kept souvenirs. On October 27, 1983, Robert was arrested at his bakery. A search of his home and plane uncovered victims' jewelry, the marked chart, and the rifle. Confronted with the evidence, Robert initially denied everything, but a plea deal was offered. Confess fully in exchange for serving time in federal prison rather than Alaska's maximum security facility, and avoid a public trial that would traumatize his family further. He accepted. In February 1984, Robert pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. Sherry Morrow, Joanna Messina, Ecletna Annie, and Paula Goulding, plus the kidnapping and rape of Cindy Paulson. He received 461 years in prison without parole. In the months that followed, he flew with investigators in his own plane, calmly pointing out grave sites from the air as the troopers below recovered remains. He showed 12 additional locations. 12 of his probable victims were eventually identified and returned to their families. Throughout the process, Robert sometimes blamed the women, claiming they had tried to extort him or that professionals should know the risks of their jobs. Yet the evidence, the map, the trophies, the ballistics, the survivor testimony was overwhelming. Robert Christian Hansen spent the rest of his life behind bars. He was moved between facilities, first to federal prison in Pennsylvania, then back to Alaska's Lemon Creek and Spring Creek Correctional Centers. In May 2014, in declining health, he was transferred to Anchorage for medical care. On August 21st, 2014, at the age of 75, he died of natural causes in an Anchorage hospital. One of the prosecutors who had faced him years earlier simply said the world was better without him. The man who had once flown over Alaska's wild rivers and mountains as both hunter and predator spent his final decades in a cell far from the sky. His bakery building still stands on East 9th Avenue in Anchorage, though the sign has changed. The wilderness he loved continues to hold its secrets. Some bodies from those 37 map marks have never been found. Yet justice, slow as the Alaskan winter, did arrive. Cindy Paulson and the other survivors lived to tell their truth. The families of the lost received answers, and, where possible, remains to bury. The quiet baker who hunted women like game in the snow is remembered now only as the butcher baker, a cautionary tale of how ordinary facades can hide extraordinary darkness. As this story ends, dear listener, let the weight of those frozen nights lift from your shoulders. The hunter is gone. The wilderness sleeps peacefully once more. Breathe in the quiet, breathe out the last traces of chill, and drift gently into rest. The victims are remembered, safety was restored, and you, my friend, are safe here. Thank you for sharing this long, slow journey with me. May your dreams be soft and undisturbed. Until our next story, sleep well and sweet dreams. True Crime Sleep Stories is hosted and created by Kelly Brink, produced with the support of our dedicated team. Subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform to help us keep telling these haunting tales. Visit patreon.com/KellyBrink for exclusive content and to join our community. Thank you for listening, and we'll meet you in the shadows next time. Until then, stay safe out there and lock your doors. Good night.